Welcome to our channel, ladies and gentlemen. The Senate has begun hearing the impeachment motion against Rigathi Gachagua after it was referred from the National Assembly by the Speaker Moses Wetangula. The question is, do you believe from where you sit that the Deputy President will get a transparent and fair hearing at the Senate? I'm asking this because many people, especially the supporters of Rigathi Gachagua, fear that the decisions the decision is already made and the process is a mere formality. Earlier in the day, the councils representing the deputy president had objected the inclusion of James Orengo as the legal team for the National Assembly. By yesterday, we had been told that it was Otiende Amolo and Peter Pondo Kaluma, and of course Murugara, who is the JLAC, chair of the JLAC committee at the National Assembly, and of course Mutuse, who was the mover of that motion, that would be the witnesses and the lawyers against Rigathi Gachagua. But today, many were shocked that the lead lawyer would be none other than James Agri Orengo. And there is something about ODM and the Luos against Rigathi Gachagua in this case. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So, Mr. Njiru Ndegwa, who is one of the council representing Rigathi Gachagua, had objected the inclusion of James Orengo. And he was arguing that under the new constitution, a state officer, someone who has been elected and is serving as a state officer, should not be allowed or cannot be allowed to practice law like James Orengo is now as a governor in Siaya, and he was arguing that under the new constitution that is not allowed. And the speaker ruling on this matter dismissed it with immediate effect.
Now, honorable senators, this morning at the commencement of the hearing for the removal from office by impeachment of His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Legal Counsel for the Deputy President, Mr. Ndegwa Njiru, Learned Counsel, raised a preliminary objection on the legal representation for the National Assembly. Learned Counsel opposed the appearance of Honorable James Orengo, Senior Counsel, who is the serving governor of Siaya County and therefore a state officer. Learned Counsel submitted that the Honorable James Orengo is a full-time serving state officer, as per Article 260 of the Constitution, as read together with Section 26, subsection 2 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, which bars a full-time state officer from engaging in any other gainful employment. Counsel further submitted that it would be prejudicial to the Deputy President if the Senate allowed Honorable James Orengo to represent the National Assembly in these proceedings. Counsel drew the attention of the Senate to the precedent set in the matter of the proposed impeachment of the Deputy Governor of Kisii County, Honorable Richard Monda, in which a decision was taken to bar Honorable Sylvanus Osoro, Majority Whip of the National Assembly and Member of Assembly for South Mugirango in Kisii County, from appearing as counsel for the Kisii County Assembly. In his submission, Counsel cited Article 77 of the Constitution and Section 26 of the Leadership and Integrity Act, as well as the decision of the High Court in Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions versus Orengo, Manduko, and two others interested parties, constitutional petition where Honorable Justice Ogola found and ruled that the continued representation of the first interested party, Mr. Manduku, by the respondent, Honorable James Orengo, as then was, or any other state officer is against the spirit of Chapter 6 of the Constitution for failing to conform to the mandatory provision of the Leadership and Integrity Act. The judge ruled that in that case, there was an inescapable conclusion of conflict of interest in Senator Orengo representing the petitioner, highlighted by the fact that the interested party, Mr. Manduku, the managing director of KPA, may at one time be summoned to appear before a committee of the Senate to answer to some of the matters that the petitioner was being investigated on. In response, Mr. Eric Gumbo, Learned Counsel for the National Assembly, submitted that Article 77 of the Constitution is the primary law that restricts activities of state officers, and it specifically prohibits a state officer from engaging in any other gainful employment. Council further relied on Section 26 of the Leadership Integrity Act, which he submitted, has defined gainful employment, and in this matter, no evidence had been laid that the Honorable James Orengo was participating in gainful employment. It therefore follows that both the contention of the counsel for the Deputy President that his side will be prejudiced by the appearance of Senior Counsel James Orengo and the rebuttal by the National Assembly that no prejudice will be occasions are moot. Honorable Senators, ladies and gentlemen, having analyzed the preliminary objection raised and for the reason I have given, the preliminary objection raised on the appearance for the National Assembly by Senior Counsel James Orengo is hereby dismissed.
After that dismissal, the supporters of Rigathi Gachagua were asked whether they still believe that there's going to be a fair hearing, and this is what they had to say.
Haya, nianze nawe, pengine uweze kutueleza maoni yako ni gani kama mkazi wa kaunti ya Nakuru kuhusiana na hoja hii. Tuliona wiki iliyopita bunge la kitaifa liliweza kupitisha hoja hii kutaka kumbandua, na sasa liko kwenye bunge la seneti. Pengine maoni yako ni gani?
Kwa majina mimi naitwa John Gekonyo, chairman wa bodaboda huku Nakuru. Mimi naona hii maneno ya Senate sasa mahali imefika. Sasa mimi nimekosa matumaini kwangu kulingana na vile sasa hii kesi inaendeshwa. Haya, mimi nikiangalia pande ya koti tena vyenye ilisema jana, mimi naona pande yetu hatuna matumaini sasa. Wacha Senate sasa kama wako na huruma wa muokoe, lakini mimi pande yangu naona hakuna matumaini tu.
Hii ya kumtoa, hii Gachagua ameenda. Hata kama tunampenda ameenda. Hii imeenda hii. Lazima kama Gachagua anajua ajiuzuru saa hii. Si ati ashinde akienda kwa Senate. Hao wako na ngima. Hao wamejaa tumbo. Si ati anaenda pale ati jitetee. Pale hivyo anatoka tu kivula walai. Pale ametolewa tu, ajikubali aseme aje enyewe kama ni hivi na mimi naongeanga ukweli. By the way nasemanga yeye anaongeanga ukweli. Kama anaongeanga ukweli ajitoe. Wakenya tumekubali ajitoe. Acha kwenda kushu pale hivyo ashinda kitusiwa pale. Amejaribu kotini na hiyo kotini anaenda enyewe hakuna haki. Juu haki ya Mkenya sasa ni pesa.
It is not only the supporters of Rigathi Gachagua that have got some fear about the process going on. I want us to read what lawyer Ahmed Nasir said. You see, lawyer Ahmed Nasir these days is trying to be neutral. He was so much, into UDA. He started with the former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Then his switch comes. He has been supporting William Ruto. But these days he's trying to balance. Now, after the dismissal of the objection from the council, that is the council that is representing Deputy President, this is what lawyer Ahmed Nasir said. That is, the Senate is sitting as the trial chambers of Deputy Rigathi Gachagua's impeachment. I thought when an issue that requires a ruling or determination, i.e. the preliminary issue raised as to whether Honorable James Orengo can act or appear for the National Assembly, the decision is exclusively reserved for the 47 senators as the jury and not the speaker. Or maybe I am wrong. Now, lawyer Ahmed Nasir is asking this question, that as the Senate sits as a jury, when such a question comes up, it is not exclusive for the speaker to determine. And he's asking, isn't it proper for the senators to, sit down and try to deliberate and come up with a conclusion? Instead, the speaker unilaterally decided that Orengo should be allowed. And I'm not saying that Orengo should not be allowed. Like the lawyer here, I'm also wondering, when an institution sits as a jury, then I think all the members of that jury are allowed to try and deliberate together to come up with one conclusion. But on this, it was the speaker who decided Orengo must be allowed. And no one raised any objection. And that is the first fear. I want us to read the second one. The ruling by the Speaker of Senate, Honorable Amason Jeff Kingi, dismissing the objection by lawyers for Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, objecting to Honorable Governor James Orengo representing the National Assembly, is grossly offensive to the Constitution and utterly shameful. How can Gachagua be tried for breaching the Constitution while the Speaker of the trial chamber, the Senate, to borrow the wise words of Justice Anton Schuyler, plays jiggery pokery with a clear and ambiguous provision of the Constitution? Some things are transparently stupid. He's using some strong words there, but he's saying that the deputy president is on trial because they're saying he breached the Constitution. Yet, in that very process, they have started on a wrong foot. They are allowing a state officer, someone who's been elected by the people, and the Constitution goes against it, and they allow him to sit on that trial chamber to represent those who have accused Rigathi Gachagua. But he's saying that this is wrong. I'm not a lawyer, and I just feel that the last time I checked, I thought that a state officer, an elected member of parliament or a governor or a senator should not be allowed to represent. But be that as it may, it was allowed. And then you may be asking, because I was also thinking, people like Kutinda Mulo are also elected. And lawyer Ahmed Nasir adds and ends by saying this: it is improper and unconstitutional for lawyers who are elected as MPs, senators, MCAs, or governors to appear in court or any other organ like Senate or National Assembly and represent parties. The Constitution prohibits such. Those are the thoughts and feelings of Ahmed Nasir. I don't know if you are a lawyer and you are watching, what is the Constitution saying about this? There seems like there's no hope in that Senate. And personally, I thought that the Speaker acted in a manner to suggest that he has taken sides. He's very partisan. Just like what happened at the National Assembly when Speaker Moses Wetangula and the Deputy Gladys Sholei boss had also taken sides. While speaking in different occasions, they had said they would deal with Rigathi Gachagua. Now, listening to the Speaker, I thought this could be happening. And on this platform, I want to give you 3 reasons why I believe that there is a very slim chance of Rigathi's survival in that Senate. Kindly subscribe to our channel. If you're watching us for the first time, click the notification bell. Please give this particular video likes and help us share videos if you can. Again, thank you if you are our returning subscribers and our supporters. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, one of the reasons why I believe that there's not going to be a fair hearing here is that the Speaker has already taken sides. So he will be bullying, just the same way we saw members who are supporting Rigathi Gachagua were being bullied. So there's not going to be a fair hearing. Number 2, these senators could go back to their bosses. Even as they sit here today, I know there are some who have already made their decisions. Those who are allied to ODM will vote in accordance to what Raila wants. That is what we saw in the National Assembly, and that is why people like Otiende Amolo, George Opondo Kaluma, Orengo are supporting this and they are leading. Let me ask you, if Raila was not supporting the impeachment of Rigathi Gachagua, would Orengo have been the lead counsel there? The answer is obviously no. So most of these have already taken a side. They have the sides, and they have decided. The decision is made. That's why I don't think there's going to be any fair hearing. Even if I remember at the National Assembly, Rigathi gave several evidence and tried to poke holes in that in the accusation, but it fell on dead ears. So it will be at the Senate. Number 4, there are allegations of bribery. People don't trust our institutions. Our institutions have already been captured by the executive. So the executive controls and they dance to the executive's tune. And 2, there have been allegations of taking money. I remember when there was that case of a vote of no confidence against the former agriculture CS Medical Inturi, we were told that the members who were looking into that case were bribed. Of course, I cannot defend that in a court of law, but there were such allegations. Ahmed Nasir himself has always said that The team that were looking at the Supreme Court judge members who were ruling the case against Raila were given billions of shillings. So we have always said, even recently, people have said that the members of the National Assembly were bribed to vote against Rigathi Gachagua. And so there are those, allegations of money exchanging hands. And if that is the case, then people will not vote with their conscience. Number three, some member of the National Assembly had confessed that the reason why he voted out Rigathi Gachagua was because he thought Kithure Kindiki would be given that seat. So this tells you that we do not vote with our conscience. That could happen at the Senate. The Senate of Meru and Embu and all that could also vote out Rigathi Gachagua because they want one of their own. And with that, I think the only way maybe for Rigathi Gachagua is to head to the courts and cross the fingers that the courts would be independent. I don't know what you think, but that's my take.